Well, for more on how U.S. policy is affecting the global fight against climate change, I spoke with Ranping Song. He's the Developing Country Climate Action Manager for the Global Climate Program at the World Resources Institute. I started off by asking him how the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord is impacting this deal.
Well, surprisingly, if we look at international corporations, we don't see a significant negative impact. Countries are forging ahead, even though the U.S. federal government is not supporting Paris Agreement. States and cities and businesses are forging ahead. Countries are still working together to develop actual rules to implement the Paris Agreement. Businesses are actually doing the things they need. Well, not as far as needed, but at least they're on the right directions to move ahead. So, well, it's not as fast as we'd like to see, but it's not that bad.
But the U.S. is not withdrawing really until June of 2020. And so in the meantime, it still sort of has a seat at the table. This is not impacting it at all?
I'm saying that it's not as you would have think that is a negative impact, because the people who are actually going to the negotiation, they're career diplomats. Their performance is pretty low profile and okay in Bonn, in the COP in the last couple of weeks. So and other countries understand there's a political consideration and context, and they are doing what they can. And they also understand that the federal government is not the whole of the U.S. So, they're also seeing action from states and cities and business, and therefore they understand U.S. is not doing nothing. Just part of the U.S. is, different from the others. So they will understand it, and they will forge ahead with what they can.
French President Emmanuel Macron recently said that the EU should pick up the bill for the financial contribution that the U.S. should be making. Do you agree?
Well, I think EU, of course, they should, stand up, to play a bigger role, because it's one of the biggest developed, party of the UNFCCC on the table that still, have committed to the leadership of climate change. Of course, I would love to see the EU become a much more vocal and leaders in the climate change, against climate change, as well as supporting the European country for the transition.
Do you think too much time is being spent on the narrative on what the U.S. is doing and what the U.S. is not doing? What should we be paying attention to?
Well, of course, I think it's important at the same time that it's important to understand what's being done or what's not being done. At the same time, we have to understand, even with the current policies, even if there's no new policy under President Trump, U.S. will not be meeting their climate agreement commitment they have been made by 2025. So that means that even if U.S. meet its climate commitment by 2025, it's still very far away from safeguarding our safe climate. That means in 2050, globally, there's essentially zero carbon emission from fossil fuel energy. So we are still very far away from that.
Is there an argument to be made, Ranping, that clean coal can play a part in slowing climate change?
It depends. If it's not an absolute case that there's no circumstance that it cannot play a role. But given the current circumstances, new renewable energy is such a cheap resources, it's creating new jobs, and the fact that wherever coal has been there, it has to be reach essentially zero carbon emission by 2050. So at this moment, it's not very good investment decision to make if we want to go to that direction.
The alliance to phase out coal, I should say, leaves Germany in somewhat of an awkward position.
Yes, of course, it's not easy. There's a lot of it's like a huge gap to jump, even for a leader like Germany. It's a very fixed system. There's a lot of invested interest, and there's a way that the system operated. Therefore, if we want to reach any transition by 2050, we have to start right now, right away, and that's the only way we can achieve anything.
What kind of impact is the EPA having on all of this?
Well, EPA have mostly on the domestic policies. So the U.S. Of course, EPA is trying to repeal the Clean Power Plants, which is Clean Power Plant plan, which is very important domestic policies. But we understand that this will be fought in COP for a long time. So at this very moment, we are not seeing a huge impact yet, because this market force is actually driving the renewable energy investment. But of course, by not standing up, not doing more, it's already not a good sign.
The fastest growing job sector in the U.S. is the wind turbine technology in relation to climate change. What kind of impact is this having, and should it dictate what the U.S. policy is?
Of course, market is the way that showcase of where the new growth points are, right? Where the new economy, where the new jobs are coming from. So if a sense statement of politician, they should be thinking, okay, what's the right policy to incentivize even better job growth, green economy that actually will help or save the environment. But that's not happening at this stage. We also see that the federal government, have a potential, other policy that can have more, observed incentive to revive coal, which is not a good sign.